Just for a small moment in time does Virginia Woodhull and her sister Tennie Claflin from Homer, Ohio have a Utica, Ohio connection. Let's learn more about those incredible women and then we'll connect the dots. Victoria California Claflin, better known as Victoria Woodhull, was born on September 23, 1838 to Reuben Buckman Claflin, known as Buck, and Roxana Hummel. Victoria was the seventh of 10 children. Her lesser-known sister, Tennessee Celeste Claflin, known as Tennie, was born October 26, 1844, and the 10th and final child of the family. 6 of the 10 children lived to maturity. Born and growing up in Homer, Ohio, Victoria and Tennie's childhood was chaotic. Victoria had on 3 years of formal education at Homer's Methodist Church School. Both girls were very bright. Their father, Buck Claflin, Esquire, was a lawyer and owned a grist mill that was in disrepair. He took out a huge insurance policy against the mill and allegedly sent the grist mill on fire to collect the insurance money. The incensed townspeople ran him out of town, and then they held a fundraiser for the rest of the family to join him. Buck, being the con man he was, proceeded to become a snake oil salesman literally. Victoria and Tennie, along with the family, spent the next few years telling fortunes and selling homemade medicines in their parents' traveling roadshow. Victoria and Tennie were also healers, as the girls twice went from rags to riches. The first fortune was made on the roadshow as magnetic healers. In 1853, at age 15, Virginia married a 28-year-old doctor named Canning Woodhull. The couple had a girl, Zulu, a.k.a. Zula, and a son, Byron, who was born with a mental deficiency. As it turned out, her husband was an alcoholic and a womanizer. Virginia then worked as a seamstress and store clerk to support the family. In the meantime, Tennie went out on her own as a fortune teller and healer. Victoria divorced her husband in 1865 and joined her, but kept her married name of Woodhull. In 1866, Woodhull married Union Army veteran Colonel James Harvey Blood after he sought out her services as a healer. Their medium and healing services were so sought after that steel magnate Cornelius Vanderbilt hired the two clairvoyants to contact his late wife. They also advised Vanderbilt on his stock portfolio. Rumors were that Tennie was Vanderbilt's mistress. Together, the sisters amassed their second fortune of over $700,000, approaching $16 million in today's money. Virginia was a well-sought-after public speaker. In 1869, she became a speaker for the women's suffrage movement. In 1870, the two opened a financial firm on Wall Street called Woodhull, Claflin & Company. They were the first women to operate a financial firm on Wall Street. Additionally, in 1870, they were the first women to found a newspaper in the United States, Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly. The weekly was written in support of women's suffrage, free love, and other left-leaning politics. Woodhull then used her financial success to promote women's rights, worker rights, and support for the poor. In 1871, Virginia was the first woman to testify before a House of Representatives committee. She tried to persuade the committee that women already had the right to vote under the 24th and 15th Amendments. She was unsuccessful, and it would be almost another 50 years before women could vote in America. Victoria ran for president of the U.S. in 1872 in the Equal Rights Party, becoming the first female presidential candidate. She chose abolitionist Frederick Douglass as her vice president, although he never acknowledged the nomination and actively supported incumbent Ulysses S. Grant. The November 2, 1872 edition of Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly, Victoria laid bare the alleged adulterous affair between Elizabeth Tilton and Reverend Henry Ward Beecher, a prominent Protestant minister in Brooklyn. The description was quite graphic, and the day it was released and mailed to subscribers, U.S. federal marshals arrested Woodhull, her second husband, Colonel James Blood, and her sister Tennie on charges of publishing an obscene newspaper. This was just days before the presidential election. They were all held at the Ludlow Street Jail for hardened criminals for the entire next month. Anthony Comstock, a self-righteous and well-connected activist, was allegedly behind the plot. The Comstock Act of 1873 was named for him. The legal issues lasted for several years, forcing Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly to shut down publication. The second fortune the two made was now also lost. Woodhull divorced Colonel Blood in October 1876. When Cornelius Vanderbilt died in 1877, his son William Vanderbilt offered Woodhull and Claflin $1,000, equivalent to about $30,000 today, to leave the country because he was concerned they might contest Vanderbilt's will. They decided to accept and moved to England in 1877. There, Victoria married a banker, John Biddulph Martin, on October 31, 1883. She participated in the British women's suffrage movement. With her daughter, Zula, they published the Humanitarian newspaper from 1892 to 1901. Woodhull lived in the English countryside until her death on June 9, 1927, at the age of 88. Literally hundreds of articles, pamphlets, and books have been written about the remarkable Victoria Woodhull. And now, the connection. In 1976, the Utica area Jaycees were going to build a shelter house at the South End Park to be used as a food location for the Jayceettes to serve during Utica's 4-day bicentennial celebration. This would replace the Pepsi wagon they had continually used prior and provided seating for patrons. We do not know how they came to find out that if they tore down a house in Homer, Ohio, they could have the wood that would enable them to build the shelter house. So, on a Saturday in the spring of 1976, they began the demolition of a house, and at some point, they were told this was the house that Victoria Woodhull grew up in. They never forgot that and had to research who this woman was exactly. They were amazed when they learned about this remarkable woman. We recently found several pictures of the Jaycee Endeavor in Homer. It matches exactly the picture of the location of that house that is shown here, still regarded as the Claflin homestead. The Jaycees did indeed use wood from the Claflin house to build the shelter house. The new shelter house at the South End Park that they built for serving food was used at the many events held there for their 4th of July celebrations, tractor and truck pulls to mud runs. They used it frequently in the 1970s and 1980s. The shelter house has been since torn down, and that is Utica's small connection to the famous Homer residence.